Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head back to Sweden once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. Now, we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel many times before. These guys are potentially my most reviewed Swedish brewery when I think about it, but if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are very solid all round, but they're most definitely best known for their different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. A very well established and very well respected name within the Swedish craft beer scene these days, and one of the breweries that I would highly recommend that you check out. Now, the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have tried from this brewery many times before. It's one that I know they can do very well, and this one, from what I gather, is one of their more kind of regular productions these days. But this one has been released since I left Sweden back in mid-2023. It is supposed to be very good, so needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, like I said, we are going to go to my second homeland of Sweden. We're going to head a little bit up the west coast to Gothenburg, Göteborg as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up on the west coast. As I always used to say, got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in when the chance arises, especially now that we're in Hong Kong. But yeah, that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from the wonderful Stigbergets Bryggeri. So this particular beer is called Albatross. It comes in at 7% ABV, and this is a New England hazy, whatever you want to call the IPA. So yeah, this is one that I picked up straight off the shelf from Stigbergets in Malmö. It's one that seems to be distributed all across Sweden, but of course if you want the really good and, how do you say, an exclusive Stigbergets stuff, then you want to go to some of the shops in Gothenburg. But yeah, definitely cool to return to these guys after about 2 years. And yeah, if you go back to it, the Amazing Haze and the GBG Beer Week beer were the ones that really kind of put Stigbergets on the map for this style. So yeah, this seems to be their new kind of regular one that they've got, and I thought it's only fitting that we review this one for you here on the channel. So yeah, Albatross, 7% New England hazy IPA from Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg. Let's crack on with this one then and see what the beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Stigbergets Bryggeri before, and hopefully we can add more to that list at some point in the very near future. But there's all the usual social media down there if you want to see more reviews. Do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Swedish playlist along with a number of other things, and that's going to be added to fairly regularly over the next little while. So keep an eye on that, but make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on the channel these days, even if I do say so myself. But yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Stigbergets Bryggeri once again then. So, Stigbergets Bryggeri, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, and the company was founded by Niels Hultkrantz and Richard Simonsson. So the pair owned two bars that shared one kitchen, Bar Kino and the Hagebjörn's Cafe, both of which can be found on Linnegatan in the city, and these opened back in 2007. And this building is actually an independent cinema. You can check it out on my Out and About video that I filmed there a few years ago. But originally, the idea that they had was to brew a few beers that they could sell in the bars, and this eventually led to them kegging the beer and selling it to other pubs before eventually starting to bottle the beer in November of 2014. So the original beers that they were producing were mainly English and German styles, but quite soon after this they started to experiment with the more hoppy American beer styles and this is where everything really started to take off for them. So the original head brewer was Ole Anderson, who is one of the co-owners of OO Brewing. He stayed with the company until April of 2017, and he was replaced after that by Barnaby Struve, who was one of the vice presidents at Three Floyds in Munster in Indiana over in the US. But Barnaby Struve was only with them for a very short period of time. So they moved to a brewery at Partihalarna where they were brewing 5,000 litre batches, and they were also starting to work on some sour beers in that facility as well. But they started selling their beers in 440 millilitre cans around this time, and that allowed them to export their beers and put them quite a little bit more further afield. These days they have a brew team of Ollie Banks, who used to work for Beavertown in London, and also Lucas Mundreed, who worked for All In Brewing, one of the numerous gypsy brewers operating in the Gothenburg area. But in summer of 2020 they opened a second brewery in the Ringun area next to the river, and this was where they were brewing some lambic beers, and they were looking at opening up a bar and having swimming facilities there as well. Soon after this they opened up a bar in Stockholm in 2020, and they also opened their own folk ale shop in Gothenburg as well. But in May of 2023 they announced that the Ringun brewery was to close, and that all production in the future would take place again at the Partihalarna location. But over the last few years, the Ringun site has been kind of transformed into a concert venue, which is known as Bryggen, and it's actually proved to be very popular, in fact. So in June of 2024, they announced that they were going to launch a new subsidiary brand called Ringu, which focuses on the use of experimental hop products in their beers, and those beers have apparently been very popular as well. So I'll need to keep an eye out for those, in fact. But yeah, as of August 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 350 different kinds of beer according to Untappd, and like I mentioned to you earlier, this brewery is best known for the different kinds of New England hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs, but they do some really nice imperial stouts, and I've had a good few different styles of beer from this brewery over the years, all of which have been pretty damn good. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Stigbergets Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with the latest goings on, and you can check out the Untappd page as well to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, that is it for your history section of the video. Let's go on and have a wee look at the artwork on this one. So yeah, one of the things you will notice with the Stigbergets beers is that their artwork contains a lot of birds, because you know Gothenburg is right on the coast, there's a lot of seagulls and things there, so yeah, you will see a lot of kind of seabirds on their cans. But yeah, this one is a 440 milliliter can, plain silver top on it there. As we mentioned earlier, this one comes in at 7% ABV, a New England hazy IPA. This one is hopped with Citra, Mosaic and Equinox, so all three hops in there are American. I think all three of them are about 14% alpha acid as well. The Equinox might be 12%, you might need to correct me on that. But yeah, Citra is going to give you a big juicy mango character and a sort of lemon limey note in a New England IPA. Mosaic is going to give you a wee touch of earthiness, but lots of nice kind of big tangerine notes. And Equinox will give you quite a distinctive floral character and also some nice big oily limey notes. So yeah, sounds like a nice kind of quite well balanced hoppy character in this one. So yeah, I think we should get this guy out into the glass and see what it's all about. The Stigbergets Albatross at 7% ABV. Let's do this. Oh. So let's have a little look at that. Ooh. Now I will say, this does look pretty nice actually. I think that'll be enough to take a look at the appearance and the aroma for the moment, and we'll put the rest in a wee bit later on. So yeah, I've poured maybe about 2/3 of the beer out into the glass, and yeah, I have to say it looks very nice. So before the head disappears, we can see that this one's got about a half finger of a kind of bubbly cream coloured head there. I don't think this one will be at its optimal freshness because I bought this maybe about a month ago. And yeah, it had been sitting at room temperature on the Systembolaget shelves. That's something that Systembolaget needs to work out actually, and getting some cold storage for their IPAs and things would be good. But yeah, you can see the colour of this one is very, very nice. I would describe this as being like a sort of mango juice colour actually. I always like comparing the New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that really is just what their appearance reminds me of. But yeah, not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, but a few bubbles going up toward the surface of the beer there. But yeah, colour-wise, this one looks very nice. And in terms of the level of haze in the beer, it is one of the soupier and gloopier 7%ers that I've come across in recent times. So yeah, remember the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the IPA style category, if you like. But yeah, the level of haze in a New England IPA is going to depend on the oak content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. And yeah, that can vary from brewery to brewery and beer to beer. But yeah, this one, I have to say, it's definitely one of the soupier and gloopier 7%ers that I've come across in recent times. And in honesty, I don't drink all that many single IPAs these days, because in Hong Kong, the kind of import and stuff puts the price up so much. The single IPAs are the same price as the doubles and triples, or thereabouts. So it actually makes more sense to drink the kind of heavier ones, to be honest with you, bang for your buck and all of that. So yeah, it'll be quite nice to have a 7% IPA, my first one in quite a wee while. But yeah, this beer looks pretty much as you would expect from a New England hazy IPA. I think we can leave the appearance section at that and go on to the aroma. So let's have a look at the smell of this one. Always have the experience when it comes to craft beers and whiskies and stuff. Take a look at the aroma. So let's do it with this one. Oh, right, okay. Smells pretty nice, actually. And it seems to be quite well balanced, in fact. You've got quite a nice big green component to this one. I'm getting quite a bit of a citrusy leaning vibe out of this one, which when you've got Mosaic and Equinaut in there kind of makes sense. So a more citrusy leaning New England IPA, this one. But one thing I will say about this style is that there are kind of 6 elements to think about when it comes to the malty and yeasty side of the beer. You've got your kind of rye leaning grainy side of things and your farmhousey yeasty character. Those 2 elements are a little bit more common in New England brewed, New England IPAs, I hasten to add. But since the style has moved to other places and evolved, you've got wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things too. So for me, I'm getting a fair little bit of wheaty character coming out of this one, but I'm also getting quite a bit of the barley malt and a wee bit of the oats as well. So yeah, it seems to be it's quite well balanced in that sense. But let's break down the aroma then and just describe it for you a bit more in depth, as we always do. So, pardon me. The backbone of this beer, as you very often get, is that fresh white bready bread crust. You can smell that in there. As well as that, you've got a nice little bit of woody character coming out of this one. Good little bit of Jacob's cream cracker as well. Tiny little bit of like wholemeal brown bread. I very often get that. But yeah, the malty base in this one is very much all about the white bread. You can smell that fresh, fluffy, white bready note from the barley malt in there. But you can also smell a more dense, wheaty type note out of this one. So yeah, for me, at the back of the nose, you've just got a little bit of bitiness coming out of the wheat. But overall, it actually comes across as really quite smooth. But I think the wheaty character in this one does build the more that you smell of this beer, actually. So that's definitely in there. And then, yeah, there's quite a lot of oaty character to this one. Now, one thing, when it comes to New England IPAs, the oaty character in these beers can give you a very rough indicator of how fresh your New England IPA is. So yeah, the oaty character in this one, basically the creamier the oats are in your IPA, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is. You are getting some creaminess out of this, but the dryness is starting to come through there as well. This one has a canned on date of the end of May 2025. So we're drinking this beer June, July, August. We're drinking this beer at just about 3 months old. So I actually got this when it was about 2 months old in Malmö, which is interesting. So it's actually would have been in pretty good condition then. But with this one, you can still get quite a bit of the creaminess out of the oats, but some of the dryness of the oaty character is starting to creep through with this one. So yeah. In terms of the sweeter side of this beer, there's a little bit of that Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch. I would hasten to add that it's very, very minimal, and you've also got that nice little bit of kind of biscuity note out of this one too. So yeah, the way that all of that kind of pieces together in this beer, I think, is quite nice. It is a more kind of bready leaning New England IPA. But yeah, wheaty, oaty and bready leaning, just a little tiny touch of sweetness in there, but it all goes together really quite nicely. Don't think we really need to say much more about the malty side of this one then. So the yeasty side of the beer. So at the back of the nose, you've got some really nice, at the back of the nose, you've got some really nice yeasty character coming out of this one. For me, it's mostly, you're getting quite a bit of the wheaty bitiness in there as well, but you've also got a little bit of, it's got a wee tiny touch of like cracker to it, so it's like a more dry white bready character that's coming out of this one. So yeah, I really do quite like how that goes together in this beer. So yeah, wee touch of brown bread to the yeasty character, quite a little bit of white bread as well, and yeah, the way that goes together, I have to say, is really quite nice. Yeah, I don't think we need to say anything more about that side of the aroma, so let's go on to the hoppy side of things then. So as I very often say in my New England reviews, there are 3 types of hoppings you can do with an IPA. Early edition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil, that's responsible for the vast majority of your bitterness. It gives you a deep dank green component. You've got late edition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour of the wort boil. That gives you a little bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and yeah, it gives you a very bright green component. Then you've got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete, and that's all about flavour and aroma. So New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, which is why they're kind of softer and more juicy, whereas West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why they're deeper, danker, more bitter and oily, if you like. So yeah, it's quite obvious with this one, it's mostly late addition and dry hopping, but I think there is a little bit of early addition hopping going on with this one as well, because the green component does have that little bit of pungency. But yeah, within that green component, you can certainly get a little bit of earthiness out of this beer. And that'll be the mosaic giving you that, but I would say that's quite minimal. Your green component is mostly floral, and there's quite a bit of grassy zestiness in this one. So I think quite a lot of the grassy and floral type character in this one is going to come from the Equinox, but all 3 hops are capable of giving you that in this one, we should say that. So yeah, nothing really surprising about the green component. Let's focus on the fruity side of things with this one. So yeah, fruity side of this beer, as I said earlier, the aroma's really leaning toward a more kind of citrusy type character. So yeah, for me, there's a little bit of like sharper peach coming out of this one, which Citra can sometimes give you depending on what sort of yeast and malt base you're using. So I'm getting a wee bit of that sharper peach in there. Very nice, ripe, juicy mangoes coming out of the beer too. So yeah, nice, ripe, juicy mangoes in there. There's a bit of like apricot-y character as well. Very often I find Citron give you that, but mostly mango and a bit of sharper peach in there. And I'm getting quite a nice little bit of oily, orangey character coming out of this beer. So yeah, for me, the oily orangey notes from the tangerine are there, and you do get that big lemony, limey character from the Equinox in this too. So yeah, is there a wee bit more to it than that? Maybe a wee bit of pineapple as well. I think that's probably fair to say. There is a wee bit more complexity to the tropical fruit. Citra, of course, is one of those hops that really does have a lot of complexity. It can kind of stand on its own in a beer for sure, and there's not too many hops that can do that, I would say. But yeah, aroma-wise, this one is very, very nice. So yeah, take a little bit of time to enjoy that aroma before you get stuck in. But yeah, I think we should get on and have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So there we go, get the rest out of the can. That's quite a nice pour actually, I have to say, and it's even soupier and gloopier now than it was before. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one then. My first beer from Stigbergets in about 2 years. I wouldn't have thought that we would get, so I think it's maybe even longer than that. But yeah, I wouldn't have thought we'd get to 2 years or so without a Stigbergets review on the channel. But yeah, let's have a taste of this one and see what it's all about. The Albatross, 7% New England IPA. Yeah, Slàinte, skål, cheers, let's do this. That's another really solid, just nice and drinkable New England IPA. Stigbergets have still got it. It's good. Here in Hong Kong, one of the beers that I drink, fairly regularly is Hazy Days from Hong Kong Beer Company, and this one kind of reminds me of that actually, but I would point out this one's just a little bit kind of drier in a sense. I would say this one's just got a little bit more dryness and a slight bite to it, but yeah, this is a really nice one. This, so if this is the one that Stigbergets are kind of putting out all over the place, I'm guessing that maybe this could well be a replacement for Amazing Haze. I don't think I actually saw Amazing Haze in the Hansa store in Malmö, which usually has a bit of everything. And the GBG Beer Week beer, I don't think was there. The new and improved, as it's called as well. This, I think, might well be their new regular one. If this is their new regular hazy IPA, I think it's pretty damn good. So thumbs up to them for that. Yeah. It's good stuff. It does have that little bit more wheaty edge to it, but I would say the malt base is a wee bit more balanced in terms of the trinity, if you like, the hops, the oats, the barley, and the wheat in this one. It's got a nice balance to it. The fruitiness is lovely, soft and juicy, and yet the bitterness in this one is just about right. The green component is nicely done. So let's just break it down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth, as we always do. So, truly just lovely and juicy. This beer feels quite nostalgic for me these days. But yeah, middle third of your palate then. So the backbone of this beer, you've got a lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. So yeah, lovely fresh white bready bread crust in there. As you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you've got a wee bit of a kind of woody character that pushes its way out into the aftertaste, and you've also got a little bit of a kind of Jacob's cream cracker coming out of this one too, which I do really like. Above that, there is a very small layer of like a wholemeal brown bready note, and that gives the beer a little bit of graininess. That does come out into the aftertaste, but yeah, the vast majority of your the bready character in this beer is like a fluffy, fresh white bread, so that's really nice. Yeah, so fresh, fluffy white bread in there with this one. And then that's from the barley malt, but then above that you do get the more dense, wheaty white bready layer in there. And yeah, as I've often said, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But yeah, the wheaty bitiness that comes out of this beer, I think, is it's not too pungent, if you like, but you do get a wee bit of it there. But yeah, that wheaty character really smoothens out further forward on the palate for sure. So that's definitely noticeable in this one. But above the wheaty white bready there, you can feel that down the middle line of your palate, there's that lovely kind of oaty creaminess coming out of the beer. So yeah, the oaty creamy character for me, down the middle line of your palate is really kind of creamy, and you can feel as you move out toward the edges of your palate there, it does just start to show you a little bit of dryness. But this beer, for being 3 months old and having not been refrigerated the full time and so on, having survived the journey back to Hong Kong, it's actually in pretty damn good condition. So again, thumbs up to Stigbergets for that. In the dead centre of your palate, there's a little circle there where you get a wee bit of like Werther's Original Butter Candy Butterscotch, and there's a wee bit of biscuit kind of surrounding that as well. That's the alcohol coming out of the beer. So there's a wee touch of that sweetness in there, but mostly this is a kind of nice old school barley, wheat and oaty New England IPA. But it's really nicely done, so it gets a thumbs up from me. Yeah. So let's go to the back third of your palate then. As I've often said, the back third of your palate will give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, but just at different intensities. So yeah, the border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of kind of bready build up in there. There's the kind of wee brown bready bit in the base, the barley malt white bread in the middle, then the more dense wheaty white bread on top. The base of that back third of your palate is of course the kind of bread crusty character. You've got the Jacob's cream cracker sitting on top of that. then yeah, you've got the layer of brown bready character, which was a little bit lighter, taller, more airy and slightly drier. You can say the same about the barley malt white bready layer that sits above that. Then sitting on top of all of that malty character is the wheaty note. So you've got that more dense, wheaty, white bready character coming out of the beer as well, which is, as I say, very, very nice. Yeah, I like that with this one, we can safely say that. But the yeasty character sits above everything else on that back third of the palate, so let's have a wee look at that. So yeah, the yeasty character is, at its core, there's a wee bit of like a wholemeal brown bready character to it, but it's surrounded by like a fresher, fluffier white bread, and then a more dense white bread around that, and maybe just a little touch of maybe just a little touch of a maybe just a little touch of a kind of fresh kind of white bready bread crust in there as well. It does give you a little bit of dryness into the aftertaste too. So yeah, the yeasty character, brown bready at its core, but mostly white bread around the edge and just a wee bit of bread crusty character there. And definitely, yeah, back third of your palate, you can feel the flavour is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of compresses down and squashes together that little bit more. But let's look at the hoppy side of things with this beer then. That's us covered the malty and yeasty side of things. Green component, back corners of the palate, you do have that little bit of earthiness in there. That's mosaic all the way. As you move further forward, there's maybe teeny wee hint of pine resin in there, but not a lot. As you move further forward, yeah, it gets more floral and aromatic. There's a little bit of spicy character to it there, but it's not overly pungent in that sense. But yeah, round the front curve of your tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy, I would say. So yeah, the way that that goes together in this one, I think, is really nice as well. Yeah, so grassiness actually has a wee bit of zestiness to it as well. I think that's going to be the Equinox that's going to give you that. But let's have a wee look at the front third of your palate then, and the fruity side of things. So yeah, the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. The brown bread's in the base, the white bread's in the middle, then the more wheaty characters on top. The base of that front third of your palate has, yeah, the white bready bread crust, the Jacob's cream cracker, the brown bread, the white bread, and then the wheaty notes, and some of the smoother side of the oaty character just creeps forward there as well. Then you've got that lovely little kind of oily bubble where the fruity, juicy esters just kind of roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, let's have a wee look at that. The fruity side of things, if you know these hops, it's kind of what you'd expect. So in the back half of that front 30 palate, it's all about the kind of tropical side of things. So you can feel at the top, there's a little touch of that peachy character that you'll sometimes get from Citra. Underneath that, you've got a lovely big kind of juicy mango-y character coming out of it. And then yeah, you have as you move further forward, there's maybe a little bit of an apricot-y and pineapple-y note going further forward, and yeah, that kind of lingers into the aftertaste and shows you a wee bit of dryness. But yeah, as you move into the front half of that front third of your tongue, it's more about the you can feel the sort of, I would say you can feel the kind of limey character underneath from the Equinox, and that actually builds in pungency into the aftertaste. And then on top of that, you get a nice kind of oily tangerine character. But I really think the Equinox for me is really quite pungent in this in the flavour of this beer. Of course, Motueka from New Zealand was the very popular hop for lime for quite a long time, and Equinox seems to be kind of coming back into it recently, and I wonder if Motueka kind of took over from Equinox because of the pungency you get out of Motueka. So yeah, I do get quite a pungent limey character out of this beer into the aftertaste. The other thing is, it could just be I've not really encountered Equinox that often until recently again, and yeah, maybe I'm just noticing it a wee bit more. But yeah, I find this beer is quite limey into the aftertaste. But yeah, you've got the tangerine orange from the mosaic and the kind of tropical notes that you'd expect of the Citra sitting there as well. But yeah, quite a wheaty and more kind of limey leaning New England IPA, this one for me. But the other elements, of course, are there. But yeah, I like how that how everything kind of pieces together in this one. It's good. Yeah, so I think that's everything we really need to say about the flavour of this beer, but it's got a lovely kind of juiciness to it, and of course the more that you drink of it, I think this beer kind of smoothens out as well and shows more of its oaty character. So yeah, I like how this one I like how this pieces together for a kind of core range IPA, if we can call it that, a core range hazy. I think it's another solid one from Stigbergets, but yeah, definitely more a limey and wheaty leaning one. Let's round off the review with a wee look at the mouthfeel then. So for me, this beer, it's mid-bodied, carbonation is quite smooth, it's got a slight silkiness to it, this one, but it's also got a wee bit of a kind of drier character, if you like. I would say, again, it comes across as very clean. You know, Swedish water quality is very, very good, so you get a little bit of that cleanliness out of the mouthfeel of the beer. In terms of the IBUs in this one, I think this is a fairly standard 30 IBU New England IPA. Your malt, as I say, it's a bit drier underneath, smoother in the middle, creamier on top, and there's a little touch of sweetness there, but I do find this one has a wee bit more dryness into the aftertaste. German malt all the way, I think. And then yeah, your fruitiness, so there's a nice bit of tropical note in there, but this one is quite kind of limey and citrusy leaning. But yeah, I do like how everything kind of pieces together in this one, and it gets a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This was the Albatross, a 7% New England hazy, whatever you want to call it, IPA from the wonderful Stigbergets Bryggeri in Gothenburg, Gothenburg on the Swedish west coast. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Stigbergets Bryggeri as well, and hopefully we can return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. It's been really nice to review another Swedish beer for you here on the channel after quite some time. But yeah, you can look forward to a few reviews from the Swedish breweries over the next wee while. But yeah, thank you for watching. Check out my social media, check out Stigbergets' social media, and I will see you guys again very, very soon. Slanja, skål, and cheers.